Welcome to About the Facts podcast with Brittany and Mike, a podcast designed to educate, navigate, and empower you to become an advocate for your family, yourself, and your community. We uncover the facts and dive into the issues that prevent people like you and me from thriving. You'll gain the tools and the insights to ask the right questions, challenge the system, and stand up for what's right. Get ready to be informed, inspired, and empowered, because the power to advocate starts with you. Let's get to it.
It's an amazing day, and welcome to About the Facts podcast. I'm your host, Mike Shelton.
And I am Brittany Grant. Thank you for tuning in. And if it's your first time here, welcome in. So About the Facts podcast, we are an interview-based podcast where we bring in subject matter experts, change agents, political leaders to talk about what they want to do in the community. So we want to help educate you so that you can navigate systems that are put in place, sometimes to trip us up.
Absolutely. Every day we hear people being caught up in bureaucratic red tape. We hear about people that should be getting certain benefits, but the system has put up barriers and walls to make it hard for you and for you to give up so you don't get what's deserved to you. It's important that we want to encourage you to subscribe to this channel, and you can find us where?
On YouTube. We're on all social media platforms. We're not on TikTok because obviously they won't let us download the app anymore, but we are on all social media platforms, on YouTube, podcast, and Spotify. There it is.
Spotify. All righty. But we want you to subscribe. Please send it to your friends, and we thank you so much. There's a lot going on in not only Oklahoma, but across the United States.
So much stuff happening.
Since we were with you last, of course, you know, we've been in a political series talking to people that are running for elections. We've talked to
our county commissioner candidate. So we've got Anastasia Pittman, who's a candidate. We've also interviewed Representative Jason Lowe, Sarah Banna. She's a councilwoman in the Midwest City.
Absolutely.
And Jed Green. So he's an independendent that's running as well. We've also talked to candidates from Ward 7 City Council, Masood Haq,
John Pettis.
John Pettis Jr., Kamal Pennington, and Andrea Holman.
That's right. And if you have not listened to those podcasts, please tune in. Yes. Please subscribe to them. I've been very happy with the number of subscriptions that we've had, but we can do more.
Absolutely.
And I'm just going to make a shameless plug. If you are interested in subscribing, if you're interested in hosting a podcast, we would appreciate that too.
Absolutely. Come out and support us.
But like I said, there's a lot going on across the state of Oklahoma, and we're going to jump right back into it. Donald Trump was inaugurated, of course, and he's going after DEI, and a lot of federal employees have a lot of concerns and fears about the future of their jobs. And that's hitting all over the world, all over the country. And so we'll be staying tuned in that, and we'll probably bring you some shows in the near future about those things.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we just want to, hey, somebody's here, and we're so happy to see who's here.
Welcome in.
We have Niah Spriggs. Yeah. She's a candidate for Oklahoma City Public School Board Chair, and I need to just add this disclosure. I sit on Oklahoma City School Board, District 5, and I'm so honored to have the opportunity to serve on that board, and I just want to make sure that she will be my colleague. But we know that you got an election coming up on February 11th.
Yes, February 11th, I'm running to be your next OKCPS Board Chair. So I can't wait to work with you and see all the wonderful things that we're going to be able to do within OKCPS.
Well, we're excited about you. And you know what I'm most excited about? I'm most excited that we got 3 candidates. A lot of times these positions run up in a situation that people are not focused on the race. And, the school board race doesn't get a lot of attention. So why don't you start by just telling about yourself and why you decided to run for school board chair?
Yes, well, I am a teacher. I'm a mom, and I'm a community leader and somebody I would consider to be in the community on the ground level, working to try to improve this community. And so I've actually was asked, by people on the right and on the left, they were looking for somebody to run. And so we're looking to make major improvements within OKCPS. I've been to the point to where I've been looking for schools. And, my son scored, some of you might have heard this, but my son scored perfect on the state test twice when we had it, and we didn't get into one of the application schools. So I think it's, yes. So, and that's the plight that so many of us are in. And so it's one of the things that spurred me to run, because I believe, I've worked in other high performing school districts, in other states, and I've studied them. And I believe that we could do so much more and so much better.
Can you talk? You said that you're a teacher. Can you talk about that? What you've taught over the years? Just slowly your pedigree, your teaching pedigree.
Yes. Well, I never thought that I would be a teacher. Just like Brittany and I were talking earlier, it's something I never thought that I would do. So when I started having all the problems with education and trying to find a place for my kids to attend school at, my older kids did go to OKCPS, and went to Northeast and to John Marshall. And so at that time, I'm working. So let me start. I married an NFL player. And so I did that for
that always works too.
Listen. No, well, because it was in that time of my life, and I think I'm a little bit older, so we go through different points in our life and different places in our life. So at that time, I was just really focused on being a mom, being a mother, being a wife, and things like that. And then as he came close to his retirement, I went back to school. And so at that point, I'm going to take over the world. At some point, I've worked on Wall Street for a minute, and I've kind of got my feel into my trajectory is a little different, because I stayed at home for so long and then went and started my career later. And so I went to University of Houston and I majored in business with the emphasis in accounting and finance. But what I learned very quickly is that they weren't looking for almost 30-year-old accounting persons. They wanted somebody younger. So it sent me on a different trajectory. And I started working in banks and I worked in front end of banks, back end of banks, and all things about risk assessment, underwriting, credit analysis, that kind of thing. So I took my business experience and actually did something else with it. And just one day, I had said, when I was dealing with my kids, I had said, hey, if things go right for me on this next deal, I'm going to spend the rest of my life working, volunteering, and things like that. And so I started volunteering at the schools first. Well, you know what? See, that's how God moves you. So because, okay, the deal closed, right? And I'm like, okay, so we have the money. And I'm like, okay, God, give me 6 more months and I'm going to pay off my car. I'm going to do this. I'm going to pay this off. I'm going to pay that. I want to, pay for this trip and all the things. And we got laid off. Literally 30 days after it closed, maybe less than 30 days. And so I took that as God saying, okay, that was it. It was time to move on. So from there, I started volunteering in the schools, just like I felt like I was led to do. And I immediately said, hey, I'd be a better teacher. We need some better teachers. And so that's how I started teaching. I've taught in Millwood, John Marshall, and then I taught in Texas. And then I've actually studied very successful schools and advocated for policy changes and things like that for education. So I'm all about education. That's one of the reasons people ask me. Somebody said to me, Niah, there's not too many people in this state that knows education like you. Why are you not on the school board? And I immediately said, I'm not a politician. I'm a school teacher.
But it's a lot of people that don't understand the roles of what a school board chair does. So give us some insight of what does a school board chair do?
So generally right now, the way the school board chair works, and I understand that because my opponent read to me the job duties.
We saw that
I'm the school board chair. And I understand what they are currently doing, because currently right now what they do is mostly oversight. And that the superintendents come up with most of the plans and things like that. And then the school board chair reports back, and they're mostly either approving what the school board chair, and we actually work with, the way it currently works right now, they're actually working with oversight of all of the different facets of a school. Because when we think about a school, it's not just, I know we're only talking about academics, but it's employment, it's hiring and firing, it's cafeteria, school bus. So the school board chair currently is just overseeing these things as they come to the board. And I want everybody to understand also the school board chair is only one of the people on the horseshoe. So there are other people on the horseshoe, and so they're trying to make sure the one thing I do know that I'm actually really interested in is that they actually set the agenda for the meetings and things like that. And so one of the things I'll say is that I want to change it to where it may not even be changing it, but I'm going to make sure that everybody on the board are able to come in and actually actually speak with and actually have a voice on what we're going to actually be had at the board on the board when we have the meetings and things like this. So I clearly understand that right now the way they do it, they're not actually involved in academic curriculum and things like that. And unlike some of my opponents, I actually don't plan on teaching. So I don't plan on teaching. I will not be leading CPLCs. I will not be leading, doing meetings and things like that. But I'm going to take this role as the board chair and go out and advocate for policy changes and things like that. I've talked to you about it, but I don't know what OKCPS position was on the $147 million for cannabis. That's one of the things that just upset me to no ends, in that we gave it all to buildings. And, and then somebody from the board actually said to me one day, that's not really a board thing because the legislature sent that down. I said, well, what did our lobbyists? We have a lobbyist, right? So they should have had a position on that. And our position, in my opinion, we should have been lobbying to get that money back to the teachers and the students as quick as possible. And so I have not asked you. And so, because I know that may have been not necessary, I'm not going to ask you because I don't want to put you on the spot. But what is the policy of OKCPS in that we allowed? I didn't know about it. And I know a bunch of people who are very politically active. Did you know about it? No, you said we were going to give the whole $147 million to build new buildings. So in that, and that is one of the things I want to do different, is that if something is coming down like that, I'm not naive. I may not be able to stop the ball from rolling. I understand it. But could we stop and alert the public to say, like, hey, they're about to give this whole $147 million to build buildings. Would you all like to keep some of it? So maybe, small towns, I understand, because the position they said as well, small towns don't have the ad valorem that we have in the city. Well, guess what? I understand it. And I really do feel sorry for the people of Eric. I feel sorry for the people of Idabel. I'm from Idabel. I understand they don't have, but we don't have an ad valorem problem in the city. We raise bond money and things like that. So we should have gotten that money and been advocating to maybe 50% go to the towns that need it. And then OKCPS Tulsa, Durant, who does not have an ad valorem problem, could have took our 50% and actually paid teachers. I know there are teachers out there who would like a raise. The bus drivers was at the wanting to know, could they get a raise? We could have gave the bus drivers a raise. I'm going to be honest with you all. We could have given the kids pizza parties, but just whatever it is, because we need to get the money back to the students as quickly as possible, because that is what the taxpayers wanted to do when they are writing these bills. Every single time we start talking about money, what is the first thing people say?
Tell me what everybody says.
Where's the cannabis money? Where's the casino money? Is that
the lottery money?
Yes, where's the lottery money? Is that not the first thing they say? Anytime we go to them and ask them for money, that's the first thing they say. So what people don't understand is that money is going into the general fund. And so, and currently there has not been a ballot measure that written that actually says the money has to go on top of what is going in the current spending levels. And so with that being said, the money is going into the general fund and it's providing for schools all over the state. But had we advocated, because that money was held in the cannabis case, because somebody said a $3 billion, but somebody else said a $5 billion surplus. So it wasn't that we needed it for the general fund, so we just held it. And when we held it, we started talking about tax cuts for childcare and tax cuts for all kinds of things like that. I'm like, where is the cannabis money? And that's when we found out, after I digged, because nobody actually would even tell me. And you should check to see how your elected officials voted on this, because a lot of people voted for it to go to buildings. Right. And so I started looking for it, and that's what brought me to. That's when I realized that it all went to buildings. And so that is one thing that I'm going to do differently, is I want to actually bring it to the public. If the public say they want to build new football fields and things like that with the money, I'm okay with that, because let the people speak. Yeah.
Well, let me just say this. Of course, you're on the ballot with other elections that are going on February 11th.
Yes.
And why don't you just kind of describe the voters that are eligible to vote for Oklahoma City School Board Chair?
Yeah, so this will be a different election, and that it will be the whole district. So anybody who lives in an address that's a whole conversation, because, nobody's actually registered where they live. And so, and then people have just registered at their parents' house and they've never changed it. So anybody who is registered in the OKCPS boundaries can vote on this election. So this will be for the whole Oklahoma City. And so we go all the way out to Spencer, all the way down the turnpike out to Lake Hefner and the Greens and the areas out there. And then we go all the way over to the airport and back down like 89th almost. And then we go all the way back down I-35 and we catch a little bit of Dale City and things like that. So it's a huge area. There's a portion of Midwest City. There's a small portion of Moore, which is considered to be Moore. And there is a few, if you go down Martin Luther King and things like that, there's a few areas that consider themselves to be in Edmond. And Edmond may be, and they actually are zoned to OKCPS. So it's a huge area, which has been... because you've ran before, so both of you all have ran before. It's a huge area. My goodness, it's been a whirlwind. We've been all over this city.
All over. So Democrat, Republican, and Independent.
Yes, everybody can vote.
Nonpartisan.
Nonpartisan.
Yes,
election. Nonpartisan. And school board should. And before I actually got on the school board, because I'm actually in a group and I go to several meetings where we talk about, and one of the things we were advocating for is the school board elections to be placed on bigger elections so more people could come out. And before, I'm going to tell you, I was really for that. But after running, I am 50-50 on it because when you're having to run on those big races, then you end up being in big ad buys. You end up being, and sometimes we maybe even be overheard at that point. And so I like the fact that we're all here. We're having, we're having podcasts, we're having debates and forums, and we've had a lot of people attend. So that gives a chance. I just think we need to highlight what's going on in the schools. And I believe that when we improve the schools and things like that, people will be more interested in what we actually have going on.
So you mentioned that normally, so our school board elections are not with our big general elections or national elections. Since a lot of our November elections, a lot of people are disengaged with what's going on. Either they're happy with the result or they're not happy with the result. What would you tell people for them to re-engage with the election process? And then why is the school board election important?
So I know that we just came off an election cycle where we really talked about that. That was the most important election of this generation. I know so many people said that it was a very important election, but I would say to people that these local elections are going to be these are things you see and touch every single day. Roads, school, childcare, things like that are going to really, really be affected. We control the budget for schools. We control the budget for the county commissioners control the county budget, and then the Ward 7 or City Council controls the city budget. So that's police, fire. It's just a gamut of things. So I say that this election is probably one of the most important elections. And I'd say that also that this gives the people of Oklahoma City the opportunity to choose who they want to lead them. In that, we can't, some of the federal things are going to come down as they're going to come down. Mm-hmm. And we already have the things that are coming down in the state as they're going to come down. So if you want to be able to control what's at least in your community, I would say that this, come out and vote, because this is going to be things that you're going to see, touch, feel every single day.
What date is it again?
February 11th. Yes. 11th. February 11th.
All right. So you've had a chance you've worked in the schools, you've had a chance to do some campaigning. What are some of the biggest issues that you think Oklahoma City Public Schools has?
So if you all know me, you all know I am hyper-focused. I'm a teacher, so I'm hyper-focused on academic achievement. I understand we have transportation problems. I understand we have child nutrition problems. I understand somebody before and after tutoring. So I'm sure we have, we even have hiring problems and things like that, and personnel issues and things. So I understand. And then we're going to probably have some budget. We possibly could have some budgetary issues, especially most people don't know that the schools are actually paid on per day attendance. So if we have, in our population right now, 60% immigrant or Hispanic population. So if we have students that are not coming to school and or are out of the district, that is going to be a budget issue. So I understand all of that.
I'm so sorry to bother you. Just because you're talking about Hispanic students not coming to school, can you just kind of dig into that so the viewers know exactly what you're talking about?
Yeah, so because I am a school teacher and because I know a ton of school teachers, we have our forums. Everybody has their little forums and things like that for groups that they're in. And I'm in a ton of teacher groups. And some of the Hispanic students are not coming to school. Some of the Hispanic families who may be undocumented currently prior to this administration, all on document, we never checked documentation or anything for kids because for a multitude of reasons. But one of the things I actually tell people is that for the most part, some of these children were actually born here. And so they can't necessarily, well, not they can actually, but it's not maybe a realistic perspective that we're going to be able to send these kids back to where their parents came from. And so with that being said, is do we want these children in the district, in the city with less support and less resources? Because that's some of the things we're actually going to have. And so they are not coming to school at the levels that they were coming to school before. And we have to figure out what that's going to look like in a real long-term plan for that. Because I was talking to someone who worked in the district and she said, well, we shouldn't have anything at the school that's going to require the parents to come in because we may not be able to protect them inside the school. And we don't want to have a situation where a parent is being detained at a school. So like we have to start thinking about more than just how we educate. And I will say that, and this is not an Oklahoma City problem also, because in some of the farming cities and things in Oklahoma, they have a significant portion of their students who are of Hispanic culture as well. So this is a state issue. And the one thing I really want to make sure that people understand is that I did a little rough numbers because, I'm a data person. I'm a math teacher. And so I did some rough numbers and we could be looking at maybe 1,000 jobs. If we lose 20% of the students, we could be possibly talking about maybe as many as 1,000 jobs we could possibly lose. So we're talking about your kids, your daughter who is a teacher, the cafeteria worker, bus drivers, electricians, plumbing, all these people. Because if we don't have the money, because the kids aren't coming to school, we're not going to be able to pay people. So everything and then Governor Stitt has said that he's going to have a flat budget. He's not going to do any budget increases. So they're not going to give us any funds right now. And I don't think we can expect any funds to make up for these students. So we're going to have to figure out where we're going to get that money from and what that's going to look like. And so I understand that we're coming into office at a very troubling time in that sense. So, but I want to make sure that I say that my hyper focus is on academic achievement. And so I was just telling Mike when we graduated school, my dad had a tragic accident when I was a kid. So many times I actually went back and forth between, because I had to stay with my grandparents even though my dad was in the hospital for like 18 months. So I went back and forth. And so, but when I went from Spencer to Millwood, there was no break. So it's not like when I was in Spencer Elementary and then came to Millwood, I was behind or anything. And the same thing is when I went back to Spencer, I was not behind leaving Millwood. I mean, there was more equitable situation with education. And when I graduated from Millwood, everybody in my class was academically prepared to go to college who got there. And those who maybe didn't graduate was because maybe they didn't want to and things like that. But there's some fire people, like some really great people that graduated with us to Millwood who are doing just some amazing things, PhD in engineering, chemical, mechanical. I graduated with a whole class of engineers. And I think that I could have done even so much more. And I think I've had a pretty successful career, but everybody in my class were like scientists and engineers and doctors and things like that. And when I say my class, because I was in AP classes and things like that, but all my cohorts have gone on. But my parents had never been to college. So I am like the OKCPS student. My mom and dad just graduated from high school. My dad worked hard labor most of his life, that kind of thing, and provided for us. And so I enrolled my own self in college. I got my own financial aid. I drove myself down to college, enrolled myself and things like that. So my parents weren't able to help me with any of that, So I really understand the plight of the OKCPS student and many students that are in this district. And had someone said, like, Niah, you could be an engineer, because I took physics in high school. I feel like I was academically prepared to do anything, but, I just didn't know.
Sometimes it's really important. My mom says all the time, you can't be what you don't see. And she's an educator, and that exposure, like student exposure, is major. So they just know what's out there and what possibilities are.
Mm-hmm. Right. I got a really important question. I didn't know you were a math teacher. Mm-hmm. As school board chair, can we go back to old math? The new math, I couldn't help my kids. My kids they were in tears, me trying to help them an old way that they love. I'm for going back to old math.
Yes. Okay. So let me be clear. I'm actually, some Republicans actually asked me my position on the Bible, and I actually told them when the kids can add, subtract, multiply, divide, and read, I'll talk to you about the Bible.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Because we need to get back to basics in that. When we were going to school, there was no such thing as kids who could not add, subtract, multiply, and divide. I don't care if they were in learning disability or whatever. I know no one who could not. And I'm sure that was.
You too.
Well,
So
I know. But I'm going to tell you, Mike, because I actually still teach, and everybody, I own a micro school right now, and all the kids in my micro school have, for the most part, have not made it in traditional school model. And a student came to me on Friday, and he does not go to OKCPS. I'm going to be honest. He goes to one of the better school districts in the city, and he is 9 years old and could not add 3-digit numbers. And I said to him, you're going to do this like that. Because I sat down next to him and saw that he understood the basic premise around it and things. And I said, okay, this is what we're going to do. We did like 2 rows together. And I said, you're going to do the bottom 3 on your own. And so he started crying. And he was like, Ms. Niah, but I can't do this. My teachers give me more help. I'm in a smaller class. And I said, no, and I was very tough on him. And I think we cannot speak, but it does not alleviate the responsibility for us to be like, this is when we set the bar high, children tend to rise to that occasion. And so I set the bar high for him today. And I said, you're going to learn to add 3-digit numbers today. And and I said, I am not going to allow. I think that we don't have this discussion enough. When we set the bar lower or we have low expectations, we are basically taking someone's future away. Mm-hmm. Because when we say, oh, we're going to have plumbers, we're going to have electricians, and we're going to do other jobs, and so everybody doesn't have to be career college ready, can you be a plumber if you can't add, subtract, multiply, divide?
You can't.
If you don't know fractions, can you be an electrician?
You can't.
And so in that, we have to have real conversations that are fact-based. Mm-hmm. And I think the students understand that too. And so when we're saying to a student, oh, you should be a plumber, he's thinking, I don't even know fractions. I don't know algebra. I don't know any of that stuff. How am I going to be a plumber? And so that's one of the things that's why I'm hyper-focused on academic achievement, because when we provide a proper education to the students, then they get to choose their trajectory. Mm-hmm. See, when I went to college, I didn't become an engineer, not because I was not ready. I did not become an engineer because nobody ever told me about it, and maybe that was my interest. Now, my interest is, like you said, mm-hmm. you didn't become a teacher, right. And you majored in something else. But if you wanted to be a teacher,
I could. I was exposed to it. I knew what it meant.
You were academically prepared.
Yes.
And so that is something that's the reason why I think education clears the playing field. It equals the playing field more than anything else. In that, when we provide a proper education to everybody, then we really provide an equal playing field.
So you talked about owning a micro school. So what is your stance on increasing the numbers of charter schools in the district?
Everybody is against the charter schools. Not everybody, but all the people who are for public education are kind of against the charter schools. And I am for children first. So let me be clear about that. I am for children first. And so I want whatever's the best outcome is going to come for children. So if we can only give them the best outcomes in charter schools, then that's really what we need to do. But I believe that when we increase the academic achievement, and Mike, I'm going to tell you this, and I know you're in a precarious position with this, but I want everybody to be clear. When we have the charter schools who have only 8 or 6% or less than 10% in below basic, and then when we have the community schools that are 70, 80, there are schools with 80% in below basics. There are schools, and that's the lowest achievement that you can have. There are schools with 60%. My neighborhood schools have Quail Creek. In the last, since the incumbent was in office, we went from 15% in below basic to 48% in below basic. So when we start talking about numbers like this, the difference between Belle Isle and Quail Creek now, well, Belle Isle is a middle school, but still, in that sense, the difference between these application schools and the general public, the neighborhood schools is vast. It's so large. And so that's one thing that's the reason I said I want to improve academic achievement for all students and all kids, because it shouldn't be that different. When I went to Millwood, and Millwood was what would probably be considered a blue ribbon school at that time. We produced very high level engineers, doctors, physicists, all kind of things. But when I went there, it was not that big of a difference. Like I said, when I went to Star Spencer, they still, Colleen, Miss Powell, who actually graduated from Star Spencer, she's doing amazing things. There's so many other people that I know, Shani Rashidi and all these people that graduated from Star Spencer went out and did amazing things. Anastasia Pittman, all these people, they graduated graduated from Star Spencer and they were prepared for life. And so I just want to say that so while I'm not against charter schools, so I want to be clear so I can answer your question. I am not against charter schools. I believe that when we improve the neighborhood schools, we won't have as many needs for charter schools. People do not. I met with some families yesterday. They live in Spencer. They don't want to drive to Belle Isle. They have to drive to Belle Isle because the difference between Rogers Middle School, who has literally their test scores, I think they're in the 60 and 70% and below basic, if not higher, and the difference in Belle Isle where they're only in the 7, 8, 9, 10% and below basic. Do you understand what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So they have no choice. So they're driving across here. They're moving to other parts of the city. They want to be able to live in Spencer. So how do we provide them a great education right in Spencer? And so I want to look at it in a twofold. So right now, immediately, we may need more charter schools. We've already approved the charter schools, so we need to get those open. One of the things I'm planning on doing is actually help alleviate some of those barriers to getting open because they're having a huge problem with the storm shelters and things like that with the city of Oklahoma City, not wanting to approve the charter schools, but not wanting to allow them to be open without putting in the storm shelters, which that's a whole other conversation. But so while we have to help them get open and so we can provide immediate relief to parents and people who want to, because you do understand, I want everybody to understand, Evan has 33 or 30 something thousand or 28,000 students. They are very close to us. And people are moving out there, not necessarily because they want to, because we have not provided them a good option within OKCPS, with the exception of the charter or the application schools. I met a family at the parade. She's applying to all the application schools. She does not know what she's going to do if they don't get in one of the application schools. And so, because they can't afford private schools.
Yeah. We very much live in a parent choice environment right now where parents are trying to look for the best option for their kid, whether it's a neighborhood school or it's a charter school or it's something else, if it's virtual school, a home school. So,
but I would say that I don't think Epic is one of the largest school districts in the state. I would say that if we improve OKCPS, those families are going to come back. When we can offer them a realistic alternative in their neighborhood so they're not driving all over the city. Because the other problem is that, as you get to the next level, this student I was talking about, she didn't know what her options for high school would be. Do you understand what I'm saying? So even when she got in, or hopefully she gets into Belle Isle or one of the other application schools, well, where is she going to go for high school? And then even within that system, sometimes we get a good teacher, not, it's very spotty. And so we need to figure out how to string together 2-3 years. I'm just telling you, that's from an educator standpoint. That's what we need to do. That's what the data says to actually improve educational outcomes and turn students around. We need to figure out how to string together 2 or 3 years of very good education or very good teachers. So therefore we could actually turn the ship around.
Yeah.
Let me ask you a question. There has been some criticism about parent involvement. But also, there's been studies showing that chronic absenteeism is an issue. I'm asking, what can you do to improve parent involvement and improve chronic absenteeism from school?
Well, first of all, there are some schools. If you look at what has happened at Douglas, they've actually solved almost both of those problems. So the first thing I'm going to do, unlike some other people, I don't think I have all the answers. I just know somebody who has the answer. And so that's what I'm going to do is actually tap these people. We have some rock stars within OKCPS. I know people that you don't think of that when you think of OKCPS. We have one of the best math teachers at Moon. We have some of the best English teachers. One of the best English teachers in OKCPS is at John Marshall. So, we need to tap into these resources and figure out what they are doing so we can try to duplicate it. And that's a business perspective in that I plan on actually really doing that to where we, all the way down to like personality assessments and things like that for people. Because, we do that in business a lot. Yeah. We want to recreate something quickly. We figure out who the person is doing it right. And then we try to duplicate that. Mm-hmm. They do it in sports. A few years ago, you might not have had as many African-American quarterbacks. But as soon as they see somebody that's doing it right, then they're trying to duplicate that. Every team now is like looking for that. So why are we not doing that in education? I told somebody one of the best teachers in the district in math spends his PLCs actually tutoring. Instead of, he should not be tutoring students, he should be tutoring other teachers. Mm-hmm. Do you understand what I'm saying? And that's a whole mind shift and a whole different perspective in that. Why is he not tutoring, and PLCs is a very important time. That's your planned learning community for all the people who are not educators, to where teachers get together and figure out how we're going to teach something and what best practices. And so we have some of those issues. And so I believe that on the chronic absenteeism and parental involvement, I believe that when we increase the educational outcomes for people, I believe that, number one, the students are going to want to come. Kids call me to come to my school when their parents don't bring them. And so they know, they feel like they're going to miss something. Even if it's just the environment with their friends, they want to be there. And so when we do that and we make school more serious, I think the kids are going to come. And then if we need to with chronic absenteeism, I actually had a suggestion that we're just going to send people to go get the kids. There's other states who have done this. So this is not anecdotally for me. There are other cities who have sent resource people out to the school, to parents, and go get the children. Once we show up 2 or 3 times to pick up Johnny, the parents the next time, in my opinion, they're going to be like, I don't want those people coming to my house. Let me get Johnny ready so that the people are not coming to get him. And this is not a situation of like arresting people or anything like that. We just need to raise the standard of what we are doing and the requirements. That's a psychological and a sociology perspective, in that when we increase the expectations, that kids and parents and things like that will actually move with it. And Douglas has proven that to be the case. They haven't started arresting people at Douglas. They just increased the expectation, increased the requirements, and the students rose up to meet them.
First of all, Kevin Jones, principal at Douglas High School, is doing an amazing job. And one of the criticisms, long before I got on the board, that principals like Kevin Jones do an amazing job, and then the board takes them out to put them down. They put them in at the board to work. And I'm hoping that we do a better job of having that consistency.
And include increasing teacher pay, increasing principal pay, to keep the principals and the teachers in the classroom. When we have rock star teachers and things like that, we need to figure out how to keep it. So I want to come up with some incentive plans. That's actually one of the things, my difference in philosophies of board chairs is, can we go out to industry? Can we go out to business leaders and business people and develop incentives and things that may not be actually have to come from the purse of OKCPS, and show what that will actually look like.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to run out of time, but we're going to have a couple of other questions for you. The first question is Spencer area, an area that you're very aware of, an area that you loved. You mentioned it several times. It's an island within itself.
Yeah.
And they want to be Spencer. They are the Spencer Bobcat area. My question to you is how do you, or what can you do, or do you have any plans for that area not to be on an island? How do they get more involved in Oklahoma City schools and where they're not left out?
Well, I mean, first of all, there's groups that actually have approached me about making Spencer an island. I mean, in their own charter system and what that will look like. And so I'm going to say I'm open, because I'm open to all possibilities. I like to hear all ideas and all possibilities, because I believe that the answer is somewhere in the middle. And so in that, but also, why do they feel like they're on an island? How many times are we visiting them? How much resources are we sending out there? How much assistance are we sending to them? And so I don't want them to feel like an island. I want them to be able to come to me and actually be able to let me know what is going on. I plan on being in Spencer. I think the board as a whole and the board members need, and not just at ribbon cuttings and things, I think we need to be at basketball games, football games, and things like that, so that a parent, somewhat a more of a relaxed situation, so a parent can be honest with us about what they're seeing in their everyday experience. When I become the board chair, I can't help them right there at that football game, but I can take a note and send something to somebody and say, hey, this is what a parent said. What's going on with that? I understand not all things are going to be able to be resolved like that, but I do feel like we need to be closer to them, so therefore we can pull them into the fabric of OKC.
Ask this last question, then she's going to take the very last question. We've kind of touched base on proof of citizenship. You touched base on the Bible. How should Oklahoma City be posturing themselves to deal with the policies that are coming from the State Department?
Well, I mean, there are some things that are coming from the State Department. I'll just be honest. Legal department is going to tell us what we can and cannot do. And so there may be some things that we have to do in that sense. And so I'm a business person. I've worked in corporate America, so I understand rules coming down from the higher ups. And so the one thing I'm saying to people is that we're going to get back to adding, subtraction, multiplication, division, reading. That is one thing we're going to be hyper focused on. If they want us we're not gonna have a religious education class. People cannot read the Bible right now. So when the kids be able to read the Bible, then I'll have a conversation with you about having a biblical history class, or biblical, or even religious education, because not just the Bible that we want to talk about, how religious education and how it shapes thinking and things like that, maybe for a high school class and things like that. But we're not going to allow just anybody to teach it. It needs to be somebody who's been professionally trained in that. So I'll say, I am a Christian, but it called us to be a light. And then people will want to follow. Instead of shining the light, Bible beating, maybe we should all think about becoming the light. And so people will want to follow us. And so that is my thing with the Bible and things like that. I mean, some of the things we may not be able to avoid because we're a public school. We accept government funds. So what that's going to look like, we just got to be able to provide as much protection for our students as we can.
So as we're wrapping up, I want to take the last couple of minutes to tell all of our viewers who you are, why you're running, and why they should vote for you.
Yeah, so, again, I'm Niah Spriggs, and I'm running to be your next OKCPS Board Chair. I want people to think about a possibility of change. I think that's what I've been saying to people, in that, can we think about something different? Can we think about normalizing? When I say this to young professionals, like normalizing having children and raising them within OKCPS. When I said this to a young professional the other day, well, why is it when you all think about having kids, you automatically say, I have to move to Edmond, I have to move to Deer Creek, I have to move to Norman, and things like that. Why is it that people are not seeing, I'm going to have children within OKCPS and they're going to graduate from an OKCPS school? And so those are the conversations. Part of the Niah plan actually talks about having the hard, difficult conversations. That's what the H stands for. And so we're going to increase accountability, and we're going to have those hard conversations to people to say that, we want you to be able to have children and raise them within OKCPS. We want OKCPS, just like Douglas is busting at the seams, and their goal is to almost 4 times the enrollment of what it was when Kevin Jones started there. I would like to see the same thing for OKCPS. I would like people to be trying to use addresses to get into OKCPS instead of move out of OKCPS. And so that is the conversation that I want to be able to have with people. And that's the reason why I think we need change, in that the current incumbent has had 9 years. And to say that we're going to do something different and we haven't done it in 9 years, I mean, that doesn't seem very realistic, because if she was going to make all of these huge changes, why hasn't she made them? It's been 9 years. And so while we've eaten around the edges, and, and I understand this is not a teacher thing. This is not a student thing. This is not a parent thing. This is a systematic failure. The whole system needs to be addressed, looked at. We want to build a commission to where we can look at a long-term solution. We want to build a commission where we can look at a long-term solution, and the commission would even help us progress check that, and it would be in conjunction with Superintendent Polk and the other board members and everybody. So I want the city, numerous people, to be on this commission, and we go out into the schools and do quarterly checks or even monthly checks to see as what the commission designed, is it actually working, and where it's working good, then we try to figure out how do we bring that over in the areas where maybe it's not working good, or do these areas need a few more resources. One thing, I know we only have a few seconds, is Pathway to Greatness. There were some winners and losers in Pathway to Greatness. What have we done to actually help Quail Creek? What have we actually done, who went from a 15% to a 48% below basic? I believe that has a lot to do with Pathway to Greatness. But what have we done to fix that? How many resources have we given them to address it? It's not the students' fault or the neighborhood. That Pathway to Greatness, that we brought that down from a head. And so what have we done to give them the extra resources so that they don't feel so much pain? And that's just the conversations that we need to be having. And that's the reason why I believe we need a change. I believe you need to vote Niah Spriggs, February 11th. Vote for change. Vote for a new OKCPS Board Chair.
Niah, it's been a pleasure. And I really enjoyed hearing your words. And I just want to remind everybody to tune in to us. How do they get to subscribe to us?
Yeah, subscribe to us on YouTube, podcast, and on Spotify. So please tune into all of our previous episodes, and you have heard it here first from our first candidate for Oklahoma City Public Schools chair.
Absolutely. And remember, this is an amazing day.
So let's go make the best of it.